Good afternoon. It's really nice to see all of you. Thank you for coming and joining us for this very special program. This is the 42nd Annual Presidential Lecture. And we're going to begin today's program with some lovely music from our talented faculty in the School of Music. Due to illness, we've had a change in our performance today. We thank David Meyer, Assistant Professor of Voice and Voice Science, for agreeing to perform, and we regret that he is not here with us today. But we're delighted to welcome Jeremiah Sanders, Visiting Assistant Professor of Voice, and we thank him for so graciously stepping in. On the piano will be Tammy Walker, Professor of Piano and Director of the School of Music. So please join me in giving them a round of applause for their performance.
Good afternoon. Today, Tammy and I will perform Le Travail du Peintre by Francis Poulenc. The translation of that title is The Works of Painters. We will perform movement 1 and movement 7. The first movement is called Pablo Picasso, and the final movement is called Jacques Villon.
Étoiles font Logos et descendre vaisate, au dépit des fièvres grassates, des crimes à haute du ventre, des satanis, des frosidios, au dépit des soleils mortels, au dépit des dieux morts, au dépit des mensonges, l'aube, l'horizon, l'oiseau, l'homme, l'amour. L'homme léger et bas, adoucissant la terre, éclaircissant les bois, illuminant la pierre et la rose nocturne et le sang de la foule.
Thank you so much, Professors Sanders and Walker. I'm used to calling her Director Walker, but thank you both for your incredible talents and for being here at Iowa. President James O. Freeman established the Presidential Lecture Series 42 years ago. And for more than 4 decades now, the lecture has showcased outstanding faculty members from across the entire university. It's served to encourage communication across disciplinary boundaries, and it's brought the work of our faculty scholars to the general public. Not only does the lecture honor our superb faculty members, but it also demonstrates our commitment to sharing knowledge with the community, both the university and the broader communities around us. This year, our lecture theme is Understanding Our Multiple Voices in 21st Century Communication. And as a communication scholar myself, I'm particularly delighted with our theme. In recent decades, the human voice has undergone a massive revolution from the crucial individual teacher's voice in the classroom to the frontiers of technology. How we create, protect, understand, convey, and amplify the multiplicity of voices in learning and in sharing ideas and in discovering new ideas continues to transform. Today, 2 of our most distinguished faculty members will explore how voice is a powerful communication tool with major impacts on classroom teaching, healthcare, consumer behavior, online platforms, social media, and more, from the individual to mass populations and cultures. Our speakers, Eric Hunter and Patrick Phan, will each make their presentation, and then I'll engage in a discussion with both of them at the end. When the program is finished, please join us for a reception to honor our distinguished speakers. Our first speaker is Eric Hunter. He is the Harriet B. and Harold S. Brady Chair in Liberal Arts and Sciences and the Departmental Executive Officer of the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders, which is home to 2 top 10 graduate programs. Professor Hunter's primary research focuses on occupational voice use, particularly examining voice disorders in elementary and secondary school teachers. His research interests also include special signal processing, biomechanical models of the voice and speech system, and muscle mechanics and muscle models. Professor Hunter's interdisciplinary background is rooted in a lot of studying and degrees in physics, mathematics, and music, culminating in his PhD in speech and hearing science at the University of Iowa. Then he went away for a while and he came back. With continuous NIH funding since 2004, he has published over 110 peer-reviewed papers and has been part of more than 500 presentations. His extensive body of work has significantly impacted the field of voice health and disorders. Please join me in welcoming Eric Hunter.
Thank you, President Wilson, for those kind words and introduction. It's an honor to be here. I stand here today because of voices. Voices that sing, as we just heard, voices that struggle, voices that inspire, and voices that sign, and voices that echo through history. Consider just one voice, the teacher's voice. Essential, powerful, yet vulnerable to the demands of the job. Understanding their struggles has been a large part of my journey of discovery, one shaped by my curiosity, failures, perseverance, and the desire to make a difference. But this journey wasn't mine alone. It was made possible by visionaries and pioneers who built the foundation on which the field of speech-language pathology has continued to grow. At the University of Iowa, this foundation runs deep, beginning over a century ago. The legacy isn't just about innovation, it's about the practical work perspective that defines the pioneer influence that is in the state of Iowa, the translation of knowledge to action, turning research into solutions, and lifting our voices to be heard. Today, I want to share that story with you, a story of voices, of journeys, and standing on the shoulders of giants. Do you remember your fourth grade teacher? I remember mine, Mrs. Jamette. And now I wasn't a bad kid, but I want you to think of boys at that age. You get a group together, the collective IQ dips, and the energy level goes up. And well, you can say that we were quite rambunctious. Poor Mrs. Jamette, faced with this small army of chaos 5 days a week, and trying to be heard above the noise, she completely lost her voice. And for more than a month, she was barely a whisper, yet she kept showing up. The financial impact is significant when you consider substitute teachers, medical care, and even in some cases, career change. But it goes beyond the financial burden. Voice problems affect the students in the classroom and the teacher's ability to project their voice, manage a classroom, and fully engage with this teacher. Picture this. A 7-year-old child comes home from school and says,
"My teacher sounded like this. Kids, it's time to be quiet."
Now, imagine that this isn't just one day, but this is weeks of dysphonic voice trying to present materials and give feedback to students. Children, especially the younger ones, need clear and engaging auditory input. Their cognitive and linguistic skills are still developing. They need a constant stream of syllables, inflections, and cues to keep them engaged and build their language ability. When a teacher's voice falters, participation dwindles, discipline becomes more challenging, and the model of oral language is muted. This is even more critical for students who are second language learners, have hearing impairments, or face learning delays. For them, every missed word is a missed opportunity to learn. Now, teachers aren't the only ones at risk. Many professionals depend on their voice and face heightened risk of vocal issues. Think of coaches who spend hours in loud, chaotic environments. Call center workers who speak endlessly and with a microphone just inches from their face. For others, like an actor or a singer whose voice is their brand, the voice problems can be devastating. Take Julie Andrews, whose career was forever changed by vocal nodules and a less than ideal treatment outcome. For these professionals, voice problems aren't just an inconvenience, they can be truly career altering. Now, voice problems can really affect anyone. I want you to remember that raspy voice you had that came after a bad cold or that crazy Hawkeye game. These are common, and in most cases, your voice do recover within a few days. However, persistent voice issues can sometimes signal a result from a more serious health concern, such as spasmodic dysphonia, Parkinson's disease, or even the effects of radiation treatment or open heart surgery. Regardless of the cause, if you have a weak, raspy, or hoarse voice that lasts more than about 10 days, it's important to seek evaluation from a vocal health professional, because early diagnosis is key. And there are effective treatments in most cases, which can make a significant difference in vocal function and quality of life. Now, I'm one of those people who has a lasting vocal damage, and so you can probably hear it in my voice. It's not as clear or strong as it used to be. And after those long marathon days and talking to students and faculty, I notice it even more, and so do they. And the hardest part is, my condition was completely preventable. My voice was more weak and more vulnerable than the average adults, but I still knew better. Now, in 2001, I sat here as a student and listened to my PhD mentor, Ingo Tietze, deliver the presidential lecture, Fascinations of the Human Voice. He spoke about the uniqueness of the vocal physiology, the symmetry between voice and hearing, and how our identity is encoded in our voice. I'm grateful for that foundation that he gave me, and I'm humbled now to stand here today, nearly 25 years later. My fascination is centered on the tools, technologies, and the interdisciplinary team science that help us answer questions related to the human voice. So today, as I'm going to share a small snapshot of some of my research, delve into some of the tools and technology that has fascinated me. The progress of research is rarely a solo endeavor. These projects were powered by interdisciplinary teams consisting of talented colleagues, and I will conclude by highlighting some of the characteristics and history which makes the University of Iowa the premier location to do this and related work. I entered the field of speech and hearing sciences accidentally. I was an undergraduate student in physics, and I needed some filler credits. So I took an independent study class with an acoustics professor. Acoustics, who knew? I love sound, it matched. Well, Dr. Strong at the time suggested I develop a real-time digital visual display, a version of cued speech to help lip reading be more effective, especially for distinguishing sounds like B and P, which look the same on the lips. So tasked with that, creating that tool, I wrote computer scripts that did fast Fourier transform and analysis of speech and generated dynamic polygon representation to visualize speech and tested on how people could use this information. What began as an undergraduate independent project grew into my master's thesis, shaping my academic trajectory and transforming me into a more engaged scholar. It also steered me towards speech and hearing sciences here at the University of Iowa. I experienced firsthand the impact of participating in undergraduate research, and I'm a strong advocate for undergraduate involvement. It can change a career and shape one, as it did mine. As a newly minted PhD, I had an amazing opportunity to be a part of a large voice research consortium. One of our big questions was just how much do teachers how much do they use their voice in a day? To answer this question, we hardwired a Pocket PC. Yeah, that's an old device, and it's pretty ancient now. We added customized software so we could record and monitor teachers for 2 weeks. It was this research consortium, especially when I eventually stepped into a leadership role, that I discovered the power and joy of scientific teams. The fascination built tools that let us answer questions that I had to deal with specialized data techniques and efficiently analyzed thousands of hours of data. And the findings were useful. How teachers speak nearly 3 times as much as the average adult, or how illustrating how vocal recovery patterns varied, with some teachers rebounding overnight and others needing several days. These insights led to models of vocal fatigue and recovery that can now inform our vocal health strategies for educators. And drink your water if you're dealing with your voice. Now, thinking of Mrs. Jamet, as well as my parents who are both teachers, this led me to more questions and more tools to answer those questions. Why do some teachers develop voice issues and others don't? What intrinsic environmental and other factors influence the vocal health of teachers? What classroom design or teaching strategies can also be part of the factors, and many other questions. Let me just highlight a couple. Several studies we did revealed the crucial role of the physical classroom environment and what it plays in teachers' vocal health. Just as a performance shelf supports both the focus of sound on stage for the performers and for the listeners, a teacher's position in the classroom can affect their vocal effort. Standing near a whiteboard or an acoustically optimized space in the classroom can reduce vocal effort while maintaining vocal clarity. Additionally, our results confirmed a known truth among most teachers, what they inherently knew, that teachers of younger grades and teachers in larger classrooms experience more vocal issues. Another research study showed that adults sense noise before and they instinctively raise their voices in response. Whether the noise is from the noise in the hallway, the HVAC system, or a playground outside. Insights like these have reshaped our perspective on how the classroom environment impacts vocal fatigue in teachers, fundamentally changing how we can approach noise control in classroom design to help protect teachers' voices while supporting children learning. Now, some of the more significant findings we have uncovered is around physiological factors that contribute to vocal issues in teachers. For example, research revealed that teachers with smaller lung volumes are at a greater significant risk for voice problems. What might be surprising at first really makes a lot of sense. Small lungs require more effort to sustain breath over long periods of time, which teachers do. Loud voice, long voice. And this increased vocal effort becomes a clear risk factor. Understanding this connection paves the way for an implementation of a simple screening tool to identify at-risk teachers early, and informs the development of targeted vocal training programs that emphasize breath support to promote long-term vocal health. Simple, practical solutions. We began to realize that while there's still much to study, we already had a lot of great solutions that could make a difference right now, today. The problem was that many of these insights were hiding in plain sight in academic circles, still unknown to the very people who could benefit from them. To bridge this gap, we shifted from publishing and presenting our findings in academic circles to trying to broaden our partnership. And a key part of this effort was bringing on educational training specialists and making sure they're part of the conversation and as collaborators. In our most recent project, we expanded our interdisciplinary team to be a former teacher and principal, now the director of an educational leadership program, connected to a public school partnership spanning 5 large school districts. Using these connections, we brought in economists and communication experts to help engage the educators directly through interviews, focus groups, and surveys. Focus groups in particular highlighted in the immense pressures teachers feel to push through their vocal strain, fearing both the financial consequences and the impact on student learning. One teacher put it plainly, "If I'm not there, the students fall behind. I push through because I can't let them down." An administrator said, "Within the first 3 weeks of school, we have 10 to 15 teachers who are hoarse or otherwise lost their voice." Despite these types of challenges, teachers found a way to cope. Some invested in personal amplification devices, while others developed nonverbal strategies. I've become a master of charades, one joked. Another admitted, I haven't had a voice on Friday in years. So I structure my lessons to avoid talking. Ironically, those that are experiencing the most vocal strain were also the same teachers taking on extracurricular roles, coaching, stage performance, leadership, leading assemblies, adding to their load and out of either their passion for their communities or their financial necessities. Many worried about their futures, with one teacher saying, I do wonder when I get older how my voice will change. I've seen it in others, so some can barely make themselves heard. These are real problems with real fears faced daily by our real teachers. And this is exactly where interdisciplinary teams can potentially offer the most effective path to real solutions. Teachers in schools are already navigating these challenges, often in creative ways. As researchers, we have the unique ability to look beyond individual classrooms, but to identify patterns across schools, across districts, and across professions. But to do this, we need teachers and administrators at the table. True expertise isn't just about understanding the problem. It's about uniting the voices, building the trust, bridging the knowledge, and creating solutions that are greater than the sum of the parts. Now, this is a very small glimpse of some of the complex interdisciplinary nature of our research. And of course, no journey is traveled alone, and mine has been deeply influenced by those who have stood before me, with me through setbacks and celebrated with me through success. I've been greatly blessed to be part of amazing teams since my childhood. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the most fascinating aspects of science is the opportunity to be part of the give and take of a strong team. Now, I've never said this before, but I feel prompted to share a little bit now, in the hope that maybe there'll be some insights or encouragement to someone who is listening. We all have challenges. Growing up, I faced a learning challenge, difficulties that still affect how I work today. Those struggles could have easily led me down a very different path. School often felt frustrating, isolating, and discouraging. And I wasn't just struggling to make sense of the words on the page. I struggled to read aloud. This led to a deeper fear that I wasn't capable and that I would never measure up academically or intellectually. But I was fortunate. My parents never gave up on me, even when I doubted myself. They held firm in their confidence and high expectations. They saw something that I couldn't see in myself. They saw something beyond my limitations. They recognized my other strengths in areas that helped me find fulfillment and growth. It took years of setbacks, challenges, and hard work to develop compensatory strategies, but over time, with strength beyond my own, I learned to embrace the unique way my mind works and discovered that what I once felt was a weakness could actually be my greatest teacher. For my learning challenges taught me patience and persistence for myself and others. It taught me to be willing to ask questions and admit mistakes. It taught me to think differently and to see connections that others might miss, while also being cognizant of things that I tend to overlook that others find obvious, and to move forward with creativity and energy. It also taught me the importance of strong teams that I could facilitate, in which everyone brings their own strengths and weaknesses to the table. Teams in which the sum is truly greater than the parts and a lot more fun. And through this journey, I learned that it wasn't just about coping, it was that learning that I could thrive. I'm deeply grateful for my parents, Gret and Annette, who were raised and were grounded in the steady, often unglamorous work of the farm. Growing up, they taught me that, like raising plants or animals, life's growth takes time. It didn't matter that I struggled differently than my siblings. Instead, they redoubled their efforts, gently but firmly encouraging me to keep going in the face of challenges, challenges and setbacks. Their unwavering faith in me along with their faith in God that they passed on to me, became an enabling power and a foundation that I could overcome obstacles, and it shaped who I am now. And just a shout out to my family, and to Laura, my rock in my heart. Her unwavering support and patience and belief in me has been a constant source of strength. I met her here after completing my PhD comprehensive exams, and she reached in and saved me in so many ways. And she has stood by me through many highs and lows and celebrated a lot of milestones and comforted me through setbacks. And a shout out to my kids who have put up with late night brainstorms, wacky ideas, movie marathons, amusement park side trips, and even the occasional request to help me with the research. On screen are the names of my co-authors, and along with pictures of my incredible colleagues at different locations. I am deeply grateful for them who have shaped my journey. Their wisdom and encouragement and friendship have enriched my professional and personal life. I've learned from them, and together we've been able to discover great ideas come from open dialogues and collaboration. Their genuine care has been invaluable. And my students, past and present, they've been an invaluable source of energy. Watching them grow, achieve, and carve out their own paths have been one of the most rewarding part of my journey. They are living proof that team-based research doesn't need to result in perfect data, because they are the result. And in their growth, especially when there's a bit of humor in food, that is where they find value. And finally, I was fundamentally shaped by my time here as a PhD student at the University of Iowa. When I first arrived, I honestly didn't know what I didn't know. But it didn't take long to realize I had joined a program and a team that was truly special. Here at the University of Iowa is where the speech and hearing sciences build its foundation. Today, as President Wilson said, we're proud to be ranked #1 among public universities for audiology and hearing sciences, and #3 in public universities in speech-language pathology. And these achievements are that stem back from the dedication of those who came before us and are still those that are striving to do it today. This legacy of excellence is rooted in the values that define Iowa: the hard work, perseverance, and the practicality and an eye to serve the people around us. Those values shape our efforts and address real-world challenges through solutions that are grounded in intellectual curiosity and innovation. Our department strives to directly reflect that tradition. And so this opportunity to give this lecture is not mine alone. It represents the dedication of so many individuals across disciplines and across generations who have shaped this program and our field. Their vision, their hard work, and their passion has made my own journey possible. And I'm deeply grateful to stand here as a beneficiary of their past and their current vision and work. The story of speech, language, and hearing sciences and disorders at the University of Iowa began in the late 1800s with Carl Seashore, you should recognize that name with that building, who worked alongside the physics department to create one of the world's first soundproof rooms. Built in 1997, this innovative space allowed for the studying of hearing, music, and speech in new ways. By 1899, Seashore had developed a prototype audiometer to test hearing. Through true academic fashion, he never patented it. By the early 1900s, Iowa had already established itself as a leader, training specialists in speech pathology and reading disabilities within the Department of Physiology and Psychology. In 1920, the university created the Department of Public Speaking, which later evolved into the Department of Speech and Dramatic Arts, under the leadership of Edward Mabey and a woman named Sarah Bowers, who was hired, and in the words of our department history, to arrange a clinic and teach a class. At that time, there were also many advancements, such as a development of an innovative device to illustrate speech sounds. As the field expanded, 1925 marked a significant milestone with a pivotal meeting held on Summit Street here in Iowa City, which laid the groundwork for which would become our accrediting association, now celebrating its centenary. This meeting would prove essential in shaping the future of speech and hearing sciences, cementing Iowa's role as a pioneer in the field. In 1927, Lee Edward Travis launched the Psychology and Speech Clinic. His leadership would later play a pivotal role in shaping the field on a national level. By 1929, Iowa had already introduced courses in audiology and speech disorders, making it clear that the university was serious about advancing communication sciences. By 1940, Iowa had become a destination for graduate students to work with some of the field's most renowned figures, such as Wendell Johnson, Charles Strother, and James Curtis. In 1947, President Virgil Hancher gave the speech clinic an official administration status, which set the stage for groundbreaking developments and clinical care. In 1956, the official Department of Speech Pathology and Audiology was established, bringing together an all-star lineup as its first faculty. And if that last name looks familiar, it's because he became a major figure in university leadership, and there's even a distinguished dissertation award named in his honor on campus. Wendell Johnson, a true pioneer in the field, profoundly impacted how we understand speech disorders. His legacy is reflected in the Wendell Johnson Speech and Hearing Center, where our department and clinic are currently housed. Now, many of our faculty and alumni have carried forward this tradition. Next month, we'll welcome back Ida Stockman as our department's distinguished alumni speaker. As a student during this transformative time, even before the Wendell Johnson Speech and Hearing Center was dedicated, she has made significant contributions to play a role in advancing autism research and in advancing opportunities for women and minorities in the field. In a recent conversation I had with her just last week, she shared with me that she had stepped away from her studies and until she received an encouraging letter from Wendell Johnson himself, urging her not to quit. She was grateful for the personal connection and concern of our faculty. As an indication of our excellence, in 1969, we swept the Association Honors Award. All were Iowans. And then in 1980, an oral rehabilitation expert became our department's first women chair. As I began my journey here at Iowa in the late 1990s, I had the privilege of working with trailblazing researchers who are already shaping the field. My PhD committee included the late Paul Abbas, whose groundbreaking work in cochlear biophysiology revolutionized cochlear implant technology, and Harry Hoffman, an otolaryngologist whose contributions, he's still here, Barry's still here, whose contributions to phonosurgical techniques have influenced practices and interventions worldwide. And my PhD advisor, Ingo Tietze, the father of vocology, played a pivotal role in advancing voice sciences. These remarkable individuals, along with so many others, represent the continuing legacy that has kept Iowa at the forefront of communication sciences and disorders. As inspiring as the past has been, the future holds even more promise. As the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, our national accreditation body, celebrates 100 years, Iowa CSD will be looking forward into a future by moving into the new Health Science Academic Building. This isn't just a new space. It's a testament to the people of Iowa, whose dedication to education, innovation, and healthcare continues to support programs like ours. Updated training clinics will provide services to the community and specialized care for complex cases. And students, researchers, and faculty will be offered state-of-the-art learning spaces for an unparalleled environment to push knowledge forward. And beyond just us, we'll be sharing the building with the Department of Health and Human Physiology and the Department of Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation Sciences, creating an exciting opportunity for collaboration and education where new ideas can take shape and can thrive. But in the past, buildings don't create legacy, people do. And we have great people here. Today at the University of Iowa's Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders, we remain one of the oldest and most esteemed programs in the world. Built on a legacy of practicality, perseverance, and the occasional audacious experiment, Iowa continues to lead boldly and is unmatched anywhere else. But we're not here to stand apart. We are here to lead, not by working in isolation, but by inviting others to join us, elevating the work of colleagues across programs and disciplines, and shaping the future where collaborations drives the greatest advancement. This is how Iowa leads. From Mrs. Jemet's whisper to the roar of the Hawkeye fans, voice reflects our experiences, relationships, and our identities. But voices are more than just sounds. They embody the essence of our paths we have walked, the struggles we have faced, and the triumphs we have achieved. As long as there are voices seeking to be understood, whether silent or spoken, handwritten or typed, signed or gestured, our work will continue, driven by our mission to shape the future of communication sciences and disorders, one voice at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for a fascinating talk and for sharing not only your personal story, but an incredible example of how the University of Iowa really made a difference in your work and in your life. So thank you. Our next speaker is Patrick Phan, who is the Henry B. Tippie Excellence Chair, Professor in Business Analytics, and Faculty Director of the Tippie Analytics Cooperative in the Tippie College of Business. Professor Phan received his PhD in Business Administration in 2002 from the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. His research interests focus on the design and development of novel information technologies, AI, information retrieval, data mining, text analytics, social media analytics, business intelligence techniques, all to support better business information management and decision-making. Professor Phan has published and presented more than 300 refereed journal articles and conference papers, of which 7 have been designated as ESI highly cited papers by the Web of Science. Professor Phan frequently consults for Fortune 500 companies, and he serves as an expert panel reviewer for many government and funding agencies. Please join me in welcoming Patrick Phan.
Thank you, President Wilson, for this nice introduction. It is truly an honor for me to be here this afternoon to give this lecture on understanding consumer voices from natural language processing perspective. While Eric is talking about these voices from the vocal voice and then the acoustic perspective, and I will talk about it mainly from my research field called natural language processing, or AI. So, as I prepare for this lecture, I asked ChatGPT, and many of you guys probably know about ChatGPT. I said, ChatGPT, tell me what are the different type of voices in the written communication? And they gave me a laundry list. And then the list, is ongoing. I said, more. He gave me like hundreds of different type of voices. So what this tells me is that voices is a very complicated subject. And voices can carry different meanings depends on your context, your perspectives. So let me just give you a few examples that I feel like it's good for us to get started to understand the voices. If you talk to an elementary school teacher, Oftentimes, they will teach the student, teach the kids, the younger generation, how to write or communicate effectively using the thing called linguistic or grammatical voices. Whether it's active voice or passive voice, they want to teach the student use them effectively. Now, if you go to the creative writing, journalism, communication department, and then they will talk about the voices in a different perspective. Oftentimes, they talk about narrative voice, character voice, and then authorial voice. They try to use different, first person, second person, third person, try to assign some personalities to different characters. And then in the end, you come up with a novel, a book that is of your personal style. And that's the thing called authorial voice. Amy Colbert, one of my colleagues in the TP College business, we shared a story the other day. She said, AI knows a whole lot about us nowadays. In fact, you can even ask ChatGPT, can you write a recommendation letter just using the voice of Amy Colbert? And then ChatGPT can do that for you. Isn't that amazing? And that tells me there's an authorial voice that AI is starting to recognize. And then that's essentially the kind of the story we want to convey. We as research scholars, we all have our own styles of writing. And then, of course, not all voices are going to be reliable. We have to basically try to distinguish this unreliable voice from the reliable ones. And then voices can also be objective if it's factual, neutral-based, or it can be subjective if it's like influenced by the personal bias and the emotions a lot. So if you go to the psychology, or if you talk to our marketing colleagues in TP College business, oftentimes we're going to talk about psychological or emotional voices. College nursing, healthcare use them a lot as well. So here, we're talking about the voices can be assertive, can be persuasive, can be empathetic, authoritative, and tentative. It all depends on the scenarios. For a nurse, if you want to take care of the patient, you want to have this thing called empathetic voice. You want to make sure that your voice can really help provide the social support for the patients in need. If you are the leaders, you want it to be assertive, you want to be authoritative, like President Trump. So here, I'm just trying to using this as examples, try to illustrate that voices are complicated subject. And there are a lot of variations and nuances in these voices. What makes it even more worse or even more challenging is that the voices are in the past used to be in the written text. Now we move everything, a lot of things online. So there we have this new term called UGCs, user-generated contents. I think many of you guys probably have heard this term before. Ever since the internet was invented, and then Web 2.0 was introduced, and then people starting to voice their opinions online a lot. They share online reviews through Amazon website, and then they also go to this online discussion forums, social media, and then share all kinds of information, generate all kinds of content. So in my last 25 years of research, I primarily spent a lot of time going through these different type of voices and primarily focus on user-generated content, UGCs. So if you look at my research in the since 2002, after finishing my PhD, and now I'm at the University of Iowa, I spent 16 years at Virginia Tech, and then in 2018, I came to Iowa City and joined TP College Business. Personally, it's a great move for me. Ever since I joined University of Iowa, my citation score has skyrocketed. It went up from 6,000 now to almost like 20,000. And if you look at the work that I do, mostly I look at the two types of voices, whether it's individual voice or it's collective voice. When I say individual voice, we look at each individual person as an individual. And then we try to see, can we do a better understanding of this person? Can we do a user profiling of this person? Can we do some personalization for them, like personalized recommendation? Now, if you're in the healthcare, we often talk about evidence-based medication or a treatment plan, right? So in this case, you want to do the thing called personalized Medicare. And then if you talk about expert opinions, now the first thing we need to know, like, who is the expert? How do we determine their expertise? Can we detect mine from their, written, write-ups? To me, that's the individual voice piece that I spend a lot of time on that. And then another side of my research, I look at a thing called collective voice, where we try to, aggregate all the individual voices and then try to understand what other consumers are saying in general, as a whole, as a collective. So, for example, online reviews, you're going to see that a lot of my research is tied to this user online reviews. And the online reviews give you a lot of information. They provide feedbacks about your product. They give you the comments about where you can improve. They also sometimes voice their frustrations about their services they received. So that's very rich context for us to study. And then another one is the user complaints. User can go online, voice all kinds of complaints through different channels. So to me, mine these content will be valuable as well. So I call them as a collective voice study. So if you look at over the years, the sources of voice data that I have studied include these two columns. The ones on the left, we call them as more like a professional or voices, like firm disclosures, where the public trading companies can disclose their earnings through the 10Ks, 10Qs. My colleagues in finance, in accounting, capital market research, they spend a lot of time doing research using the firm disclosure data. And then analyst reports, and then financial analysts also give the report, talk about different stocks, mutual fund, and then to guide the investors on their investment. And then news articles, and then clinical notes. See, all of this on the left, I have done some research in those areas, and these are more like the professional, write-ups on the voice data. And then if you look at it on the right-hand side, we have online reviews, user discussions, consumer complaints, and social media posts. And this is what I call them as more like UGCs, user-generated content. And then you will see that the volume of the data on the right-hand side has really started to take off since the early 2000s. So this is where I think my research can come into play, and then I can leverage my training from University of Michigan, on the natural language processing, leveraging the AI, machine learning, try to tackle and look into this, and then try to understand more about what they are saying. So a fundamental question people often ask me is like, why do we need to understand these voices? Why does understanding voices matter? So as I'm a faculty member in TB College, we teach our students how to be a great presenter, how to be a great communicator. So one of the fundamental things we teach our students is that voices are the foundation for effective communication. You got to understand the different type of voices. And then once you understand these voices, you got to know how to speak different type of voices depending on the context, as I mentioned earlier. So once you know how to do these different voices, engage in these kind of conversations, you become a better communicator, a very influential communicator. And then lastly, to me, I do feel like the consumer voices is a gold mine. We can uncover values from these consumer voices. We can try to see their needs, we can see the areas we can improve upon, and then we can also find the sources of innovation ideas. So to me, that's the most exciting part. So what is my research all about? It's all about the three fundamental questions. What are they saying? And how do they say it? And which way is more effective? Now you can talk about effectiveness in different ways to measure, to quantify. So in the last 25 years or so, I have been trying to using this type of questions to help me. And then I talk to different people. Sometimes I use my own personal experience, try to identify the problems that I want to study, And then I try to leverage natural language processing, AI, machine learning, and try to solve this kind of problems. So these are the sample projects that I have conducted in the last 20 years or so. And for example, the first one, how do we screen the firm disclosures for risk assessment? Public trading companies, using their 10Ks, 10Qs to disclose all their financials. Now, we can potentially read between the lines from their disclosures. We can identify the potential financial statement management manipulation risks. And that's the project I did when I was a faculty member at Virginia Tech, in collaboration with the accounting faculty members. And then another question, what kind of social media posts generate the most buzz? If you think about the TikTok, if you think about the social media, Instagram, Facebook, to be honest, I post a lot on Facebook as well, right, about this, different social media. But the reason why I post this is because I really want to understand which one can generate the most buzz. Is it the topic? Is it the presentation? Or is it the language you describe your post? Make a difference. And then how should a firm respond when you face a security breach? Now, this is the study that I did with our colleagues from Virginia Tech. Basically, we look at some of the firms. They all experience some data security breach. But after that happened, how should the firm respond? What kind of a communication strategy should they adopt? Which one is more effective, less damaging to their reputation and to their bottom lines? So these are fundamental questions the firm are trying to understand. And then how to better position your project description for a crowdfunding campaign. If you are an entrepreneur, you try to raise money, and then you want to do a good job in your project pitch. How do you pitch your project? How do you effectively leverage text, image, and video, and then to do a better job on the project description to basically attract more backers to back your projects? And then lastly, how do you uncover the product defect information from this massive user complaints, from embedded in the online reviews or in the online chatters? So in the next couple of 50 minutes or so, I will try to give you some glimpse on the project that I did. 3 projects, just try to demonstrate how this natural language processing AI can really help us to uncover values from these UGCs. So the first one is the one I did back in 2009, and we have, since 2009, we have spent almost like 10 years or so working on this project, talk about how to uncover product quality issues from online reviews. Now, why do I want to do this project? Is because I do have some personal experience with my cars. I have a Honda Odyssey 2008 I bought. And then I took my family to Disneyland. On the way back, all the cars in front of me stopped. And I tried to stop my vehicle. I could not stop my vehicle. I almost had a major, major crash and major accident. So I was so frustrated. I was so panicked. And then I want to see, there's something wrong with this vehicle. So I went online, and then I look at the chatters, and then people talk about the soft brake problems, soft brake pedal problems of this Honda Odyssey at that time. So my colleague and I starting to engage in this kind of conversation, and then I work with my PhD student, and then we starting to collect data, and then we try to uncover this, the product quality issues from these social chatters. In fact, we found out there are so many such kind of a user posts that are available online. And then this has been one of the most rewarding projects we have been doing. So we have published many, many papers related to this topic. The first one came out in Decision Support System, which is one of the top journals in my field. We talk about a vehicle defect discovery from social media. And ever since then, we have published several articles along these lines related to this product defect discovery using the social chatters. So from this project, let me give you some examples. You can use NLP or text analytics, go through all these user postings, user complaints. For example, in this one, study one, okay, we use the data from National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration using their user complaints database, 1.1 million user complaints. We basically run this textual analysis, go through that, running a probabilistic model, and then we generate the summary of all the key defect information for different cars, different model, for different model years. Now, this is the early 2012. If you think about it now, we could do even better with the ChatGPT, okay, with all these large generative models, large language models. So this is the user complaints data. And then we went to Amazon online reviews. And then we apply the same methodology, and then we can basically uncover the product defect information about different products. For example, for Google Chromecast, they have this HDMI streaming issues. And then for Amazon Kindle Fire, you have this charger and battery issues. And then we went to the car forums where the users spend a lot of time discussing the car problems. And then we use two examples, Toyota Nation and then Honda Tech. We just talk to them. They agree to allow us to scrape the data. So we use their data to analyze, to identify the product defects. This is what we found. We use the same methodology, and then we can essentially come up with the vehicle, model, component, and then their symptoms. And then we can also, right now, we can use large language models, try to even produce a summary that is meaningful to explain what is going on with this product. So what do we learn from this project? We learned that, this user complaint data, user feedbacks, is very rich. If we can leverage this natural language processing, AI, effectively, we can essentially uncover a lot of these very important issues, and then we can try to address them, by improving our product, by improving our services. So, my colleague at Virginia Tech continue doing this research along these lines. They apply the same methodology for furnitures, for toys, washing machines, all kinds of consumer product. In fact, they even come up with like a toolkit, and then they share with the government officials. And now they can even train the Consumer Product Safety Commission, train them, give them a certificate, and then for them to use the product, and then to do this kind of safety training. See, to us, this is a very valuable experience. We feel like the effort we put in to share our research with the government officials to protect the U.S. consumers is a very viable thing to do. And then now, of course, after the paper is published, we have received a lot of media inquiries, law firm inquiries. They even try to contact us to even share the keyword list that we use for them. Of course, this is all something we can discuss later. But you can see that now BMW, Toyota, all the manufacturers are now starting to adopt this methodology to try to scan the user complaints and then try to improve their qualities. See, to me, this is something that is very valuable. The second project I want to share today is a little bit, we did a little bit twist on this defect discovery. Instead of doing the defect, can we uncover the product innovation ideas from these online reviews? So let me talk about this very briefly. So what is innovation? In business school, in TIBI College, we talk about innovations a lot. We always try to emphasize that we want to come up with some new ideas, cool ideas, and then convert that into something that is meaningful, and then the consumers are willing to pay. This is all this entrepreneurship idea, right? So firms have spent a lot of time trying to come up with some new ideas, but sometimes they are limited by the resources that they have. So because of that, now they're starting to tap into the thing called consumers. Can we involve the consumers in the value creation process? Can we bring them in to give some ideas so that we can innovate, right? Then that's not enough. But if you look at this online reviews is a very rich data set. It's not only talk about the positive things, but also talk about their need, the gap, the things they cannot be fulfilled by the current product and services. To me, we feel like this is the area we can potentially to draw the ideas of innovation from. And that's where we venture on and then started working on this project. And then we basically developed a natural language processing model. And then we went through these online reviews. We tag those sentences that are potentially can offer some product improvement ideas. And we call them as innovation sentences. Once we identify those innovation sentences, we aggregate them, and then we produce them as a summary report. So here's some examples for that. And you can see that from these online reviews, by doing this proper natural language processing text extractions, and then the sentence classifications, you can essentially uncover some new ideas for your product design. This is what I call them as the wisdom of the crowds. We can tap into the crowds to gather more wisdom for product innovations. And I feel like this may not only work for the manufacturers, also for healthcare, even for higher education, we can benefit a lot from this. The last project I want to talk about is the one that I'm currently working on, and it's related to the thing called mental health assessment using AI. Now, why do we want to do this project? Take a look on this statistics. There's alarming statistics about this mental health issues. And then ever since COVID, University of Iowa even spent more resources, have more resources available, trying to basically provide mental health support to our students and faculty in need. There's a strong need for that. However, if you look at the current status, we are short-handed on the providers, and then a lot of the students, teenagers who are suffering this mental health, they are hesitating to seek the provider help. Instead, what they do, they went online, they go online, and then they chat in Reddit, in some of the online chat rooms, and then they try to seek help, seek social support from others. So to me, this is something that we can potentially, build upon this AI, natural language processing, and then to talk about this mental health assessment as well. So our goal for this project essentially, can we do something to basically do a better job on the mental health assessment? And we did some literature reviews on this, and then we look at all the additional approaches. The current state-of-the-art methods are starting to use what? Large language models. Right? AI, there's like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Mental Llama, all of that, for mental health assessment. However, one of the issues with these large language models is that they are costly to use, and then you have to pay for that. Even the open source ones, if you run the tokens, through them, you still have to pay. So this will add up very, very quickly. Another thing is, in the healthcare domains, patient record cannot be shared. There's a HIPAA regulation. We have to respect that. So because of that, can we come up with a scalable solution that is locally deployable, that we can use in a local environment and still achieving the same performance as those large language models? And that's our goal. We want to have this kind of as an objective. So what we did, we come up with a large language model ourselves. It's a distilled model. For those of you who don't know the term called a distilled model, it's basically we try to develop a smaller child model that is mimic the behavior of the large language models. So we can achieve similar kind of performance with less number of parameters, but still can accomplish the same goal. So what we did, we basically leveraging the data from the Reddit. We use 16 subreddit mental health related data, and then we provide the training for our transformer-based model. We train our own encoder, we train our own decoder. The encoder is used for understanding the text, convert them into a representation that the machine can understand and then be able to classify, to diagnose. And then the decoder is going to try to basically provide some reasons why this particular post is flagged as some mental health issues. So by doing that, we can essentially, using this AI model, can do this effectively for mental health assessment and quantification. We can detect mental health disorders, we can detect loneliness, we can provide a score, and then we can track the progression of the individuals over time. So to us, we got something accomplished. We have run all kinds of benchmark testing. We are even developing an app that we can deploy locally for different field tests. We are working with colleagues in TIPI right now, and also we are trying to, working with colleagues in the mental health department, try to provide this kind of evaluations to see how things can shape up. So what I did today in this very short 30 minutes, I'm trying to basically talk about that, the consumer voice is a very rich data set. It's a gold mine. And then if we can use AI and natural language processing effectively, we can potentially uncover a lot of values. We can balance the individual voice. We can also try to understand the collective voice. Now, expert voices still matter in my mind. We just need the expert to stand up and then voice their opinions to fight all kinds of misinformation. So with that, I'll conclude my lecture, and thank you so much for your listening.
Thank you, both of you, Eric and Patrick, for fascinating talks. Both of you talked a lot about voices, a lot about data, and quite a bit about communication. So I have a few questions for you just to get us started. And they're not easy questions, so jump in or change the questions if you don't like them. So first of all, general understandings of the areas that you work in are often very different from professional and academic understandings. And we talked a little bit about this in your preparation for your remarks. How do you translate? How do you talk more to people who are outside of the academy, people who don't really understand your methods and maybe not all of your terms? How do we bridge that gap between the academic and the non-academic worlds? Or how do you, maybe? You can preach to us, but maybe just tell us how you've done that and what's worked and what hasn't.
So I'll start. So one of the things that I did was that, I tried to sometimes, talking to the journalist and then try to talk to them, engage them in the conversation to share what I did. And in TIPI College of Business, we also have a dedicated, communication staff member who basically try to look at our research and then try to basically come up with some layman term, try to be able to express and then communicate our research findings through the different outlets. So to me, I try to using that as an opportunity to, to reach out. And then the other thing which I did, try to do some local engagement. Sometimes I talk to the radio stations. Sometimes I engage in the public forums. And sometimes I also serve on the panel to discuss some of the latest issues about AI adoptions by different organizations. So to me, this is going to be a great opportunity as a way to try to bridge the gap between the academic and also the business.
How about you, Eric?
Well, communication like this is really difficult. I lean to my clinical colleagues, and they're always trying to work with that with patience and adherence. It's one thing to know it, and you all do it. You go to the doctor says something about what you should be adopting, and we don't quite do it, even though we believe it. And I think that goes to one of the hard things we have. We may have evidence, and we may even have knowledge, but how do we convey it to where it actually means something? And this mixture of evidence-based medicine is needed, but it's usually the anecdote which compels and drives us. How do we bridge that gap? We tell the story with the anecdote, supported by the evidence, and often as academics, we lead with the evidence, and the face shuts off.
Yeah, it's a good point. And of course, with the Writing University, we are always talking about storytelling, right? And it's not all fictional. It's often good stories with data, is what I hear you saying. So how can faculty get out of our academic bubble? You know, we talk a lot about Iowa City being a little bit of a bubble in the state, and the people just don't understand us here. But how do we do a better job of understanding different groups, different stakeholders outside of Iowa City?
One of the things which I feel like we should do more is like, reach out to the, local communities, talk to them, like, different healthcare providers, even the farmers, rural areas, different agencies, different, companies, talk to them to understand their needs. To me, I feel like by engaging these kind of dialogues, it can have a better understanding the things, the issue they are facing, and then we can also, at the same time, as academics, we can try to provide some potential solutions to tackle these kind of problems. To me, this kind of conversation is going to be very necessary.
Eric, you want to add anything?
Sure, and I agree. Communication is key in this and talking to them. From the academic side of it, I think there needs to be a realization on what the academy is, even internally. There's value in it being an ivory tower, and there's limitations to that. It's like a greenhouse. There's a purpose for a greenhouse, but you have to know it's a greenhouse. You can test things in it, you can grow things in it. It's not the real world, but it can simulate. Knowing what it is, and then saying, I have to get outside of it, the value and the limitations of it.
Sometimes we joke that we should all be spending more time at the Iowa State Fair, but maybe that's a good example of the kind of work we should be doing. Let's talk a little bit about ethical implications of your work, and Patrick, maybe yours even more than Eric's, but I think you've probably both grappled with that. What are the ethical implications of what you're doing, and have you run into any ethical issues in your research that you could share with us?
So, as we all know, right now, a lot of the large tech companies are using these AI models, developing these AI models. Even in the our current research, we develop all kinds of AI models and then we deploy them. Now, the problem is that with some of these models is that if you are not test the model correctly, sometimes the model could have run into some potential bias issues. That's going to be one of the major ethical concerns for these machine learning models. For example, if you're using one particular population, for example, African American population, using that data set as a training set, and then you develop a model, and then you try to run that model against this Asian and Hispanic people, then the model may not work very well. So because of that, right now, there's a more call for ethical research, AI research. We want to make sure that before we release our AI models, we wanted to test them in different settings, different environment. Do we have any ethical concerns? Do we have any limitations on the models? Try to disclose that. That way people are going to be aware of. And then when they try to use the model to, for example, to provide as a decision aid to support the decision makings, make sure, let the providers, let the people who use the models know that what are these limitations so that the people can make the final judgment call. Do not let the AI models to run the entire show. Instead, we as human beings, we should make the final call. So to me, I think this is the things we got to be very careful when we deal with AI models.
Right. No, not so much, Eric. No ethical issues in your research. So, following up on what you just said, Patrick, there's so many people that are nervous about AI and about ChatGPT and other forms of data. How do you convince people that people still matter in all of this? That it's not just going to turn into machines doing everything, and those of us who are training people to do things are going to be obsolete at some point?
This is one of the major issues nowadays facing by this industry right now. And if you look at the impact of AI on the labor market, there will be all kinds of debate in terms of the, what kind of impact AI may bring to the labor force. Some of this, the people, especially those people who are doing like a very labor-intensive jobs, potentially could be impacted by this deployment of AI models, because these robots can do the things that replaces human beings. And then some of these agent models can also potentially replace some of the analyst job potentially. But with that said, there's always a demand where people, we're calling for more people who knows how to use these AI models, who knows how to leverage these AI models, who knows how to develop these AI models. So to me, I feel like this is the kind of the area we need to think about. How can we, using this new higher education, to better train our students, to be equipped with this AI knowledge, so that they can better serve the society. And then the other thing which I also tend to emphasize a lot when I teach the courses at TIPI is that do not let the AI models, as I said earlier, to basically do this entire decision-making process. AI models is there just as a decision aid, and the human beings still have to make the final call. If you are the provider, for example, even though UIHC is deploying this AI model, can do the transcriptions, can produce the summary for you for the patient visit, you as a provider, you still have to go there, look at every word in that summary, and then try to verify, and then try to do all the corrections to make sure that everything said there is truthful, and then you can sign off. So to me, I think this is going to be the kind of the workflow we should follow to make sure that we are using the AI in an ethical way and in a responsible way. Now, there's always a danger potentially, where people may not do that, but that's a different story. As I think the entire world right now, the government officials are starting to ramp up the regulations, and then on the safety, on the privacy, and also on the responsible AI usage and deployment.
Thank you. You both touched on the role of experts in today's world, and you're both trained with multiple degrees, and you're doing the work that's pretty sophisticated, and we're training students to do the same kind of work. And yet, at least right now, a lot of people are questioning the role of experts. They're saying they don't trust people in higher ed. They're not sure that we really are very valuable in problem solving, and there's just been a lot of critique of expertise. So how do you think about that in your own work, and how do we help mitigate against experts becoming less important, if you will? Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, if I had a great question, if I had a good answer for that, that'd go a long way. I think you touched on it, and we have a trust problem. And trust isn't rebuilt by just speaking at people. It's by being with people and talking. That doesn't mean trust is necessarily regained, but you have to do it with that. And then you have to build the trust that you're at least listening. It's okay if we don't agree, and we deal with it in academia all the time, where there's people we don't agree with, but we can trust that they're following processes. And if we can get back to the trust that someone that isn't an expert may have an insight that may not be global, but this still has an insight, I think that's what's probably needed next. We have to trust each other.
Yeah. Patrick?
And I want to add to Eric's point. The expert tend to be in a specific domain. Like, for example, for me, when people need some domain knowledge about AI, natural language processing, they're going to call upon me as an expert. But I do not claim myself to be an expert in, for example, in English writing. So only, talk about the things that you are known for. To me, that's going to be a good advice for us to speak publicly. And also in the social media postings, always, quote some sources with verifiable sources to make sure that you can back your claims up. That way, you do not spread any misinformation. So to me, I think this is something which I can offer.
Can you describe for the audience one thing that you've done in your work that's really helped somebody in a concrete way, or a company if that's the case, but just some impact that you're really proud of that you don't get to talk about very often?
I mentioned it a little bit in my talk. I think the first one is students. I know it's not, we're studying to try to help teachers be better off, but it's the student experience to think beyond themselves and be part of a group and try to make a difference, regardless of the question. And so I think that's my favorite. But now when it comes to an effect, I would have to probably say, and it still isn't out there, is what I brought up today about a simple thing like just lung size. Lung size can make a difference. And if we can at least warn some of the teachers beforehand, you might need to practice a little bit more. You might need to go see a voice coach, a speech pathologist. It can make a difference and save a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a lot of real world kind of implications of what you're doing to help teachers early on. I was struck by your comment that by Friday, most new teachers have lost their voices, and I hadn't actually thought about that, but it's a really important impact and a way to mediate it is, I guess, what about you, Patrick?
In my talk, I mentioned the project about project defect discovery from the social chatters. So we have been working on that project with like several PhD students at Virginia Tech, and then we spent almost like 10 years developing the solutions for different industries. And then right now, that methodology has been used for training the government officials. So to me, we have done something that is valuable to the government and also valuable to the firms as well. Firms are adopting this as a methodology to basically to improve their product quality. So from the quality control, quality analytics perspective, I think we have done some meaningful contribution in that regard.
Thank you. So last question. Here you are sitting at University of Iowa. You've both had pathways that have gone to other places, some Big Ten universities, some non-Big Ten universities, and you've ended up here, and you're talking to an audience of Hawkeyes mostly. Why is this the place for you right now? You talked about the history quite a bit, Eric, which I think was great, but why is your work better right now because you're at Iowa? Patrick, I'm going to ask you first.
Okay, good question. Great question.
And your dean is in the room, so
Yeah.
you might want to say something to her. I don't know.
So I grew up, I'm originally born in China, and then I came to the States to study at the University of Michigan, which is a college town. And then for me, when I finished my PhD, I said, I want to go to a college town to teach. And then I went to Blacksburg, in Virginia. I taught at Virginia Tech for 16 years. And then opportunity came up, and then in Iowa City, University of Iowa offering this chair position. So I was able to apply and then be able to get this opportunity to come down here. Why? It's because the legacy of the Big Ten school, University of Iowa, great writing school, great healthcare, and then great shopping, To me, I don't even have a Costco in Blacksburg. I don't even have a hospital in Blacksburg, so I can come to here and then in 5 minutes, I can get everything done, So that's the things which I like. Another thing which I like, as I mentioned that in the Q&As in the news, I starting to pick up this hobby called nature photography. I starting to take the photos of the eagles, and I share the eagle photos online. Iowa City, by the way, is one of the top college towns. Has the best number of eagles, owls, all the wildlife you can ever find. So to me, living in this town is a blessing. And then working with colleagues in Tippie is also a blessing. We have great leaderships, great colleagues, all well-trained, great students, and they provide one of the best resources you can ever ask for you to conduct your research. To me, I feel like I come back into Big Ten home.
Nice. Costco. I don't think I've ever heard that before. Yeah, Eric, what about you? Besides the fact that you met your wife here.
I met my wife here, which is a great story. Iowa City is just a great place for it. You think of the state of Iowa and Iowa City. Within about 5 hours, you can hit some major cities while still being being close to rural. It's right-sized. I know there's some people that want to be in a bigger city or some want to be in a smaller one or something. This is really a right-sized place, a right-sized university. It has the medical campus. It has the great academics. You know, it has the great sports. It has all these things that kind of are all centered here. And from my own personal and the field, as you heard me talk about the tradition, it's a lot easier to make a difference when externally people already recognize something. The work's already been done. And then a combination of, I know when I was, when this was a possibility, what turned the corner for me was when I met the leadership of the college. I got off the call and I hit my wife and I'm like, I gotta take this seriously. These are people that are thinking about this right. And while they're thinking about it right, isn't always that normal. It's very pragmatic. There are other peer institutions that have more money. They have
Really?
they have different resources and stuff. But there's a different way that people do it here. And I think that's the quality of the people. We have enough money, but we don't have that kind of money. But it's the people that make the difference in it. And that's why I came back for.
I don't think we can beat that. Please join me in thanking our two great speakers for this lecture. Join us for a reception in the hallway, and thank you. And thanks to the grad students who joined us today and made your voices heard. Thank you.